specifically. This is the next one I would like to read. And it's going to kind of reinstate what we've been saying all along, that the deeper we go down, the more advanced things become. And this article reinforces that for me. And, they keep wanting to talk about, you know, eh, um, s- you know, Stone Age weaponry. But this article is going to show you that we're dealing with the Atlantean overlays are very, very obvious to me. Discovery in Texas. Again, I want to try to take time and be a little more present with live chat. 130 people in chat. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this early hour, 5:46 Pacific time, 8:46 Eastern time. Your time is very precious to me, as mine is to yours, I hope. And this series has become quite a little um, child of mine in a sense. And each and every one of you here, I really appreciate. So yeah, the owl symbolism. I see some of you talking about it already. We're going to get into that. This is found on many of the temples here. So I'm going to try and make a mental note to read my owl article next. Discovery in Texas, Washington, 1889. So for people that may be new, I want to reinforce this. This is the title of the article. This is the newspaper it was printed in, a Washington publication, 1889. Immense archaeological interest has been made. A tree was blown down, below it a skull. Now, why is this important? Um, through my work and some of the things I've said on Doctor's Longo shows for people that have seen all those episodes, I've covered quite immensely the idea that they were planting trees on top of mounds. This was kind of a sacred rite. This existed in China. This existed in Japan. Pagodas were built over kings. Um, Flower Jones, thank you so much. Flower is just such a sweetie. Always here, always donating. It really means a lot. In the next, little while, I'll be announcing some things I plan on doing to create, more exciting things for the show. And your donations are all going to go towards, making some new concepts I have for this channel and bringing them into fruition. So I really appreciate that. I've just been pulling everything from YouTube and kind of postulating what it is that my next step is going to be. So thank you so much, Flower. It means a lot. So yeah, they're planting trees on top of burials, on top of mounds. And this is some kind of think of like Avatar, the mother tree. This is like kind of a sacred um, funeral rite. And I find a lot of these oak trees, cypress trees. One of the largest burial mounds in Florida was covered by the largest cypress tree that was living in Florida at the time in the 1800s, 1900s. And beneath it, they found a giant. So, similar thing here. Tree blown down, below it, a skull. Discovery in Texas. Unearthing an old burial ground of Indians and Aztecs. A correspondent writing from El Dorado, Texas says, a discovery of immense archaeological interest has recently been made near Painted Cave on the Southern Pacific Railroad at the junction of the Pecos and Rio Grande. Mr. Vandervoot, who owns a farm near the town, mentioned he found on his place after a recent windstorm a large cottonwood tree blown down and leaving the roots exposed. In the earth, loosened by its fall and upheaved by its spreading roots, he noticed a round object, which upon inspection proved to be a human skull. The skull was that of an Aztec. After 2 or 3 feet had been removed, almost every upheaval of the spade brought to light a bone or a weapon or other object. There was a great number of arrowheads, both of stone and of glass, in the manufacture of which the Aztecs excelled. But to set at rest all doubts as to what people the bones had belonged, the peculiar weapon of the Azatian race, we'll say Aztlan, Atlantean, was found. This weapon is a short metal axe. Okay, metallurgy again. We've talked about this. We've been showing metal weapons and all kinds of metal stuff. all across the American Southwest. We're not dealing with Stone Age, we're dealing with metallurgy with blades of glass. Again, metal axe with blades of glass. The metal is supposed to be copper, but the specimens are tarnished, encrusted by age and burial. Again, hardening of copper, the technology that they found in some of these hardened copper was stuff that we didn't even have and we barely have any understanding of today. Hardening of copper is incredibly complex and difficult. And I would stretch to say that this copper is probably from the Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes region, which again, they're finding Great Lakes copper in Europe, in Peru. And the trade that was going on here in America was unbelievable. We've talked about the immensity of the cities, the ancient mining. This is the land of Ophir. This is Solomon's gold mines, essentially. Several shields are among the relics, and on being cleaned were found to be brass, each skillfully engraved with an owl. Copper knives and stone tomahawks are abundant, and there are 20 or 30 headbands of silver and copper. Now, remember, Emperor Tigrinus, he was carrying a crystal dagger. Okay, remember, he had the stone battle axes and the crystal dagger, and he had a shield that was made of mica and reflected sunlight like a mirror. Okay, he was blinding these creatures with his shield and with his crystal dagger. You know, that again, the tech was far more advanced than we think. Copper knives, stone tomahawks are abundant, and there are 20 or 30 headbands. I covered that, sorry. There is also a helmet or cacique of thin silver with a small hole in the top. The headdress of a Mexican officer was a helmet with a top knot of feathers. Now, Eber, the feather. I meant this Eber in the Hebrew roots of the feather and the feathered helmet. It reminds me of the Trojans. There's so many overlays with the Romans in America and the Hebraic races and the Phoenicians. It's pretty crazy, and you keep finding them here. And as we get to the Gulf, we're going to find more of it. Silver armor, leg. Sorry, it's a little rough here. Leg from knees to ankle. Silver armor from legs to knees to ankle was found near the helmeted skull. One bony hand still clenched a dart with 3 copper points and held it so firmly that it was necessary to keep hand and all. Another ghastly object was a pair of clenched jaws, holding beneath their discolored teeth a small image engraved on agate. This must have been the likeness of a god thrust into the mouth, and a number of gold and silver pendants and a quantity of Aztec currency were picked up. The later consists of bits of tin in the shape like the letter T. The letter T, in the Tau, it's pretty amazing. There's so many overlays with the Japanese and the Chinese all along the American Southwest here. And remember, before the Chinese language was completely rewritten by the British, well, quote British, a conglomerate of people, they had what was called hieroglyphic Chinese, and it very much resembled Phoenician and Block Hebrew. And the T is an important symbol that kind of crosses the bridge of all of these. It's like the A and the Aleph and all of these common symbols that exist all along the American Southwest. It's like the swastika. We've talked about this endlessly. Arizona was the land of the Tejan race, New Mexico as well. The Irie, and you find the swastika. It's obviously a sacred symbol to the Buddhists. You find Buddha statues and images engraved in Arizona, New Mexico. You're going to find them here in Texas, all throughout Mexico, all along the Mississippi Valley. Among the human bones were mingled those of several animals, too small to have been cattle. Horses were, of course, unknown. They definitely weren't unknown. They had these incredibly odd horses back then. Remember, they had giant horses that were 50 feet tall in California. And then they found horses that were 3 feet tall. So we're dealing with giants and we're dealing with pygmies and dwarfs. It's, America is the land of Tolkien, and they had all of these incredible different types of people living here and different types of animals. Too large to have been dogs. I doubt that. Now, if you remember in my Nevada episode, we talked about the giant man hunting the elephants by the lakeside. And his stride, they guess his height to be 10 feet. And he had a dog running with him. Canine footprints, huge canine. This 10-foot giant was hunting elephants by the lakeside in Nevada, prehistoric Nevada. There were those of ocelots trained by the Aztecs for the hunt and for battle. You guys, you hear that? Buried with this man was an ocelot. Now, I've heard these stories before, but to find actual bones, incredible. Okay, this guy must have been someone very special, for when he passed. His ocelot was buried with him. Think about that. How crazy that would be to see in battle. This man with this in armor beyond anything found in America, or at least anything described to us today. Running with this shield with an owl and a tomahawk made of metal with blades of glass, with his ocelot running by his side. That the ocelots took an active part is shown by the fact that the jaws of one held the severed skull of an Indian, while the teeth of a second were fastened on a thigh bone. So this guy had multiple ocelots with him, and it was buried with a skull and a thigh bone of its enemy. In turn, a tomahawk was still sticking his partially cloven skull. Maybe this wasn't a tomb, and this was a grave of a battle scene. Who knows? But incredible. I just love the imagery. Just picture this Aztec warrior covered in incredibly beautiful and advanced silver armor, carrying these glass metal weapons with two ocelots running at his side, fighting his enemies. I mean, it's just insane. I've been saying this over and over that Tolkien's written conception of America, Middle Earth, as he called it, seems to be far more accurate than we ever guessed, and that truth is stranger than fiction.